Welcome to Sector Report. I'm David Beatson, and coming up, water rights. They're back on the agenda as the government plans to pump $400 million into new irrigation schemes. The phosphate's gone from this Pacific island, but it's still funding important agriculture marketing research and development here in New Zealand. Migrant workers, the changing face of Kiwi farm community life.
It's a lot of work trying to get a guy in from overseas with all the paperwork and stuff you've got to go through. But it's just our only option, really.
Southland dairy farmers prefer migrant workers to dysfunctional Kiwis. Well, that's one not so surprising finding from a Lincoln University researcher studying the need for migrant workers in the New Zealand dairy sector. The farmers say migrant workers are highly motivated to work, make money and send it home to their relatives. But too many Kiwi workers are turning up with social issues, criminal records and poor work ethics. Rural correspondent Drew Chappell's been down to Winton, meeting those 2,000 migrants from the Philippines working in Southland's dairy industry.
Lyle Soriano is a long way from home. Born and raised more than 8,000 kilometres away in the Philippines, Lyle is now an Ototo farm manager, looking after a milking herd of 900 cattle. At first, facing an infamous Southland winter was a bit of a shock to his system.
From a temperate country, looking back from a cold climate, like during the winter I arrived at that time, waking up in the morning was a little bit really a problem. Like, you want to snuggle up a little bit, and yeah, but later on you can, a little bit on adjustment period. It takes time though.
Lyle is one of thousands of Filipinos in the Southland region, many of whom moved here to find work in the fast-growing dairy industry. After completing a degree in stock management at university, he had a decision to make. After seeing an advertisement from rural recruitment firm ATR Fagan, he lost no time in applying.
I emailed them probably after less than a week. I got a job offer, and it was the start of the process then. So from March to until July, it was the process time that eventually I was here. Considering that some other guys were applying probably a year before and sort of things like that, but we were just lucky with for the ATR Fagan, because like they've been looking after us, like the application process and getting us connected with the employers. So that was really good.
And it's no fluke he's doing so well either.
It's a lot of work trying to get a guy in from overseas with all the paperwork and stuff you've got to go through. But it's just our only option, really.
Craig Stevenson is one of hundreds of Southland farmers faced with a shortage of willing local labour as the growth of the industry accelerated in the early 2000s.
Oh, it's growing huge. The Southland's had the lowest unemployment rate in New Zealand for the last couple of years, I'm pretty sure. And filling those gaps is just getting harder and harder.
He says many locals are initially enthusiastic, but he's had trouble holding on to Kiwi labour this far south.
Yeah, there's a lot of people down here with Filipinos and also South Americans as well, who are quite popular. Yeah, mainly because there's not the Kiwis out there to fill the jobs, and the ones that are out there just aren't sort of lasting. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good Kiwis in the industry working really hard, but generally they get a good job and they stick with it, and it's hard to get them.
As for Lyle, he's learning more on the job than he ever could in the classroom.
Driving cows from the paddocks to the yards and then milking cows basically, and the rest of the jobs follows, like different irrigation and tractor works as well. So I've learned it through the process, like slowly taking one at a time each couple of months, and then learn another more. Just want that one to get almost perfectly as we could, and like we don't want to bugger it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's clearly a fast learner, already making the step up to management level.
Yeah, I was given an opportunity in the farm to step up as a farm manager by next season, so hopefully that will be in July. So that will be an additional responsibility again, but I'm trying to look forward to it, like just keeping the responsibilities on hand, and yeah, with the help of Craig and the big walls is up there now. Yeah, hopefully I can make it.
At first he didn't think he was ready for it, but when I set up to management I didn't think I was ready for it. I don't think you're never ready for it, you just got to do it. And I'll be there to help him out if anything goes wrong, but yeah, I've got full faith in him that he'll succeed.
The small town of Winton describes itself as the heart of Southland, and with a population of just a few thousand people, the huge influx of workers from overseas onto the surrounding dairy farms has certainly changed its demographic. The local supermarket is in on the act, introducing an international section to cater to the more foreign tastes of their customers. And a new shop has even opened up, helping some to make a home away from home.
All from Philippines.
Yes.
It's all done every week.
So every week you have to order more in?
Yeah.
So it makes them feel at home?
Yeah.
Driving the influx at a regional level is the weight of demand for farm staff. Industry good organisation Dairy NZ monitors the labour situation across the country, and especially in dairying hotspots like Southland.
If we didn't have the offshore people coming in, we couldn't. Sustainability of the industry in Southland would be severely compromised. There just aren't we just don't appear to have the numbers of Kiwis wanting to work in the industry. So the migrant labour force that's come in has really been saved the day, as it were.
It's a scenario that works for both parties.
If they've got a good attitude and are willing to learn and work, then I'm willing to spend time with them and teach them. And that's with anyone from any race. It doesn't matter what colour their skin is or what nationality they are. They can work on the farm as long as they've got that attitude.
And it's not a short-term issue either. Most migrants, like Lyle, are looking to settle here for good.
I really love dairy farming, and yeah, it's probably where I think I got married my job. Yeah, so eventually I've got chances and opportunities really doing this, like stepping up and going the whole way through up, like probably a couple of years, 5-10 years, or probably 20 years.
Drew Chappell reporting. Next up, there's a big ticket item for agriculture in the next government budget. To see what it is, stay with Sector Report. Last year's government budget delivered $35 million over 5 years to bring irrigation infrastructure plans up to investment-ready stage. This year, the government plans to take the next step, earmarking $400 million from the sale of shares in state-owned energy enterprises for investment in partnerships to build regional irrigation schemes. But are local partners ready to take that next big step? Waikato Federated Farmers President James Houghton joins us now. James, welcome.
Good morning.
The government is talking about these potential for big irrigation partnership schemes. I mean, can we really get into that? Are we really ready for doing big partnership schemes when you're still fighting on the old battle of first come, first served in terms of water allocation?
In Waikato, yeah, it's going to be a wait and see process. I see there isn't. People aren't really in the mindset at the moment to think about big irrigation projects, as in storing water for irrigation.
Okay, why is that?
I think at the moment we've just come to grips with what we call Variation 6. The Environment Court released that in November last year, and that gives basically farming was supposed to have been all resource consented for their water takes for their farming operations. Mm-hmm. The regional council never really pushed or enforced it for 20 years, and now we need to catch up to find out where the catchments are and the state of their water.
Yeah, so okay, I mean that's my real point, that you've got to get to the basic grounds of actually understanding what the contest is and how you actually go about getting a resource consent. I mean, do you really think, I mean, how long has it taken you to get Variation 6 in place in the Waikato?
I think really the court from my knowledge of it, it's been like a 5-year process to actually really get through from when we started back in 2006 to where we are now.
Have you got a model that's applicable for other river catchment areas?
I think other regional councils are actually taking note of what has happened, and really agriculture came off very well out of the Variation 6. I believe that we got to a place where we would never have been able to negotiate.
Look, tell me about that, because not everyone's familiar with Variation 6.
Okay.
And so what does that enable you to do you couldn't do?
Basically, Variation 6 actually created a fair environment within the region for people to get their water. We used to have hierarchies and priorities. Municipal takes, which is basically town takes.
Town water supply.
Town water supply, they were at the top, and then below them on the resource consent process was going to be new urban takes. And then we moved down into business existing takes, and then new. So farming was right down the scale.
So, just the economic base of these communities was bottom end Charlie, tail end Charlie.
The scary thing is, in some of the catchments, we believe that the water takes are above what the regional council will permit in the long-term sustainable thing. So, and we were arguing in Environment Court that either farming had to go or the urban towns had to go, and that's where it sort of got to almost in the Environment Court.
Well, let me ask you another question. I mean, it's fine to say, well, farming now has, as a result of this work, 5 years of work, got to a better position. But have all farmers got to a better position, or you're still in a situation where the big can get a priority over the small farmers?
No.
For a small farmer, water is just as critical.
We've got to a place now where farmers are all on an equal peg. If you snooze, you lose, is the situation. We've all got
What does that mean?
Farmers have all got to be resource consented, or have the applications into the process by the end of 2014 if they want to continue to take their water.
Well, you're under a lot of pressure to get it done. How much is it costing an average farmer to get a resource consent through?
There's been a wide range. In the past, sort of like looking somewhere between $3,000 and $30,000, depending on your requirements and your demands.
3 and 33. Yeah, that is a wide range.
But we're actually working on a process now, because the regional council used to normally process about 1,000 resource consents a year. They're now having to get through close to 4,000 in the next 2 years.
And one of the things you're doing is getting farmers to think in terms of forming a group in a catchment, say 500 farmers. I mean, how's that working out?
Well,
are farmers getting the common interest thing?
Well, we're
common interest message.
We've been working with regional council, and to try and streamline this process, we're looking at using one of the rulings out of the Environment Court came back that in 2000, we're using 15th of October 2008 as a date that you had a grandparenting right to what water you were using approximately around that time. You've got that right to apply for that. And so what we're going to try and do is in catchments, the Waikato region is going to sort of like be broken down into 7 major catchments. And within that catchment we'll have a key date that all the farmers who want to join in together, and then the applications will all be processed as one resource consent, and they'll issue multiple resource consents. So, like we've talked of the range of $3,000 to $30,000. The price of these group consents could actually come well under that under that value.
Waikato is one of the major river systems of New Zealand, and it's an obvious place where you're looking at this $400 million worth of funding available for partnership schemes. Is there any likelihood of take-up? I mean, for instance, we've already had the Irrigation Acceleration Fund around for a while, and it's been sort of flagged, but is there any awareness or interest?
One of the big problems within our catchment, what I see in the major, especially in the Waikato catchment, is we've got all those hydro dams.
Yeah, but most major river systems do.
Yeah, but the government has with this focus on renewable energy, prioritised the majority of that water has got to stay within that waterway so that it can maximise its hydro generation. And then as you further move down, we've got Hamilton City taking water. Then as you further move down to that, we've got Huntly Genesis Power Station, which works the water volumes have to be there to keep the water at a suitable level, otherwise they have to stop generation. And then you move further down the river even more, and you've got Auckland water take, those are all factors that are affecting the ability to take out water and use it for storage and put it onto land.
Okay, so the contest is not resolved, and it's quite a complex one. I mean, the Crown is saying, we've got the funding, we want to be a minority equity partner, and by the way, ultimately we're going to sell out. Is that really a basis for the kind of partnership that farmers will cotton to?
I think farmers will seize any opportunity, and that's why we are and we do what we do. We're business people, and we will look for opportunities. To irrigate gives certainty of production, gives certainty of sort of like revenue, and can really consolidate and give you certainty in your business. And that's what I mean is farmers will look for those opportunities.
James, thanks for that, and I'll look forward to the development of this contest with great interest.
It's a work in progress, but we are willing parties, and I think there's great opportunity within our region for it to benefit all.
James, thank you. Waikato Federated Farmers President James Houghton. Next, after 25 years, New Zealand's Agriculture Marketing Research and Development Trust is changing direction. Where's AgMart going now? Welcome back to Sector Report. Well, since 1987, the Agriculture Marketing Research and Development Trust, AgMart, has been managing a $32 million fund established when the British Christmas Island and New Zealand Phosphate Commissions were wound up. Since then, AgMart has ploughed more than $60 million into R&D projects to assist emerging leaders in the agricultural, horticultural and forestry sectors. But this year, AgMart carried out a major stocktake, developing a new strategic plan to guide its effort over the next 3 years. Here's AgMart's chairman, Jeff Grant. Well, thanks for your time, Jeff. Straight up, why did you decide it was really time to review the strategic priority at AgMart?
Well, we've been operating since 1987 as an organisation, putting investment in the rural sector. And with a couple of changes of trustees, we looked at the way the operation was going. We firstly reviewed the $70 million that's being the capital fund, and then after that looked at the strategic priorities and decided that the AgMart needed to get closer to the market in terms of the activities that it was funding through agribusiness.
I'll come back to that in a minute, but first of all, I mean, you said you reviewed your activities. What were your findings on the impact that the organisation was actually having with all the funding it had put into train in place?
Well, I think the biggest thing was that we had drifted towards more on-farm production and also more in the academic field. So a lot of money was going into the universities and also CRIs, and not enough, in our view, going towards the commercial end of the export industry.
So what have you now set as your new priorities?
Well, we've looked at the way we're operating. So the new two areas especially are in-market services. So what we're saying is that we want to see more investment with commercial companies in the export markets physically. And
physically offshore? Physically
offshore. And in the second area, we have extended the leadership into a governance role. So what we've said is that we will invest in youth and leadership, young farmers, young horticulturalists of the year programs that we've historically done. But we're going to put more effort into the governance side because agribusiness is lacking.
Very short question, why?
Well, we're finding that for the agribusiness area is a big jump from the Board of Trustees for a local farmer to the Fonterra type co-ops. And so we think there is a larger investment needed in governance, and so that's where that investment's going to take place. Of course,
directors' responsibilities are a lot tougher than they used to be.
Yes, and it is becoming increasingly new areas are entered into. So irrigation is a good example where we're starting to put some investment in the governance of irrigation schemes, so that those groups, community groups that establish themselves can get a much better structure in terms of the way they operate.
Now, you've got a third area, you had export.
Yeah, the agribusiness innovation area has existed under the old program, but as part of the new strategy, we've re-looked at that, sharpened up the focus in terms of both the reporting and also looking at a wider field in terms of what we will invest in.
Specifically, what kind of projects, what kind of talents are you particularly interested in helping in the next funding round?
Well, we've just announced yesterday the first of the new funding round, and that's called a boot camp, which is made up of 20 CEOs throughout the agribusiness sector, including seafood actually, and they're going to go to Stanford University for a week in a quite an intensive program looking at what they can do for New Zealand agribusiness and terms of exports into Asia and what are the opportunities. And so that's we're a part sponsor of that, and that's the sort of investment we're looking at.
I'd like to turn now to your own organisation, because you were initially set up, I think, by the government in 1987, correct?
Yes, by Colin Moyle as the Minister of Agriculture then. Took the original capital of 30 million that came as part of the decommissioning of the British Phosphate Commission. New Zealand's 30 million was put into a trust which was establishing AgMart.
Okay, well, so who are you as a director either appointed by or responsible to now?
So we have 4 trustees which are appointed by the Minister of Primary Industries now, or historically the Minister of Agriculture. They're normally 2 3-year terms. And as part of our leadership program, actually, we've taken on a 5th director as part of a training program. And Nathan Flowerday has come from the horticultural industry. He is involved as a trustee, and that's a training program that we do. But there are 4 trustees.
So who measures your performance?
So we're accountable to the Minister. So we're a normal process in terms of governance. We're audited by the Audit New Zealand in our annual report, and we're required to report to the Minister annually.
Well, since 1987, you've actually distributed more than $60 million, which when you start out with a sum of $32 million means you've been doing something with the money in the meantime. How is your actual money being generated these days?
Right, so we invest all the money through a professional fund managers. We've just actually, as part of the review, we changed. We're now investing through a company called Jana Investments. Their responsibility is to give us a return above inflation. We inflation-proof the original fund, that's why it's got to $70 million, and any excess above that inflation rate on an annual basis is what we expend.
Tell me, how do you actually monitor progress with the projects and say, the individuals that you've funded?
So we've got a small team. We've got a general manager and a part-time person who helps us with the project allocations. And so the biggest role there is that we set out quite strong milestones in terms of reporting, and the projects report on a quarterly or a 6-monthly basis. And then through Audit New Zealand, in terms of our annual audit, we look at projects each year to see whether that expenditure had gone to the right place, the right time, and that the outcomes had been successful. Look, all projects are not successful. We've invested in some where the outcomes in terms of the research or the program haven't been successful. But we're reasonably happy about...
What's your strike rate?
Oh, look, I think our strike rate's probably at around 80%. In terms of the projects. And one of the changes we're going to do as part of the new strategy is that we're going to invest larger amounts in less number of projects, I think, over the next 12 months.
Now, one question. If the R&D effort actually leads to a commercial application, do you get a share of the action?
We have looked at that in terms of some of the programs we do. We used to spend an enormous amount of time around intellectual property, but the reality is that the return on those investments take a long time to come to fruition. So we work on a policy to say where there is a public good element in terms of that is to the wider industry, then there's no IP. If the element has a commercial lend to it, we will look at saying that after a period of time that information, all that research should be publicly available. So that's the way we operate in terms of that.
And in terms of actually sitting down and saying, right, how do we celebrate a breakthrough, a real talent, a real innovation that's been generated by the program?
I think a good example is, which was a rather unusual project, is that we invested in the Dryland Wood Association, which looked at hardening of the eucalyptus trees growing in New Zealand, an $80,000 investment. And along with their 50%, and that has now generated around $1 million more for that industry by year 2012. And so there are quite tangible investments that you can make that give a return. There are some in terms of the leadership and governance ones which are a bit more subjective, but the reality is you can see tangible outcomes.
Well, we'd like to hear about more successes coming up. In the meantime, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Jeff Grant, Chairman of AgMart, the Agriculture Marketing Research and Development Trust. And that's all for now. Next time, the Queensland fruit fly may be our latest biosecurity fear, but rural correspondent Drew Chappell is hot on the trail of another mite that's causing much more trouble. Meantime, you can check out our programs anytime online at country99tv.co.nz. Thanks for your company. I'm David Beatson for Sector Report. See you next time.